Hello everybody and welcome back to Carried Away Travels. In this week's video, I want to do something a little bit different and I want to give you a guide to filming locations for the Game of Thrones TV series in Northern Ireland and Iceland. Now, I found it kind of funny because I was not originally looking for these locations. I'm not really a Game of Thrones fan, sorry, but 2 trips in a row, I ended up visiting these filming locations just because the places I wanted to visit ended up being filming locations, and they were absolutely gorgeous, epic spots in both countries. And so I ended up doing a bit more research, and it turns out quite a few of the places where they filmed are on my bucket list. So my goal here is for this video to be the first of kind of a series where, as I visit more of these filming locations as I travel, I can share them with you, and not just this is the spot, but this is how to get here, what to wear, what to expect, everything you need to know to make visiting super easy. So when it's time for you to go visit these locations for yourself, you have an absolutely seamless experience. By the way, if this is your first time here, I'm Carrie and I share helpful travel tips, itineraries, gear recommendations, and more so you can always have the perfect trip. I have guides and adventures from all over the world and I add new ones just about every week. So if you're looking for some inspiration or specific information for an upcoming trip, there's a good chance I have more videos and blog posts that'll be really helpful to you. So if that sounds like the kind of videos you want more of in your feed, make sure you subscribe to Carried Away Travels, hit that notification button, and stay tuned for more videos from me in the future. And with that, let's go ahead and start our Game of Thrones journey. Let's go ahead and kick things off with Game of Thrones filming locations you can visit in Iceland. First up on the list is Skogafoss waterfall. Now, this is one of the most popular waterfalls in the entire country, and it is really not hard to see why. It is absolutely epic, and it is one of my favorite stops from the entire trip just because it was such a beautiful and majestic and easy stop. Skogafoss was featured in season 8 of the Game of Thrones series, where Jon and Daenerys fly over this double waterfall. Now, Skogafoss is just one beautiful, massive cascade, but they did CGI an additional fall over it. However, if you look at the show and then you look at the actual waterfall, you can very clearly recognize it. It's just such a notable wide fall with this beautiful pool at the end. So you can definitely see it, even though they did add a little bit of CGI there. Like I said, this one is super easy to visit. It is right off of the Ring Road, which is like the main highway in Iceland, and is one of the most popular spots on a South Coast road trip, which if you're interested in doing that, I do have a full one-day itinerary for that I just released a couple weeks ago. But it is so easy to go to because you don't even need to hike. You literally just pull up into the parking lot and you can see the waterfall right there, which just makes that even more fun. Like, to have such awesome beauty just so easily within reach for anyone. So this is definitely a fun one. However, because you do walk right up to the base of the falls, it is very easy to get soaked from the spray of the waterfalls. So you're going to want to make sure you have some water resistant boots and a waterproof coat, probably a hat and gloves in the winter as well, because you will get wet and cold. The next filming location is also a popular South Coast Iceland stop, and this is the Reynisfjara Black Sand Beach, which was used as Eastwatch by the Sea. This is just such a cool spot to explore because it really does have this fantasy, kind of surreal feeling to it because of all the rugged terrain that's really just characteristic of a lot of parts of Iceland, but you see it so much here from the basalt columns and that black sand. It's just got such a cool, epic feel to it while you're exploring. So this is one you'll probably want to spend some time walking along the beach, check out those basalt columns, and of course don't forget to look out in the distance a little bit because there are some really cool rock formations out in the water as well. But something to be aware of is that the waves here, they call them sneaker waves, and they will sneak up on you wipe you off your feet and take you out to sea. So just be very cautious as you're exploring, not to turn your back to the ocean if you're too close, and just pay attention to your surroundings because it can be a little bit dangerous. And just a fun fact for this location, the basalt columns here inspired the design for the Dragonstone's throne room. Next up is Kirkjufell, which is the arrowhead mountain beyond the wall, which is seen in season 6 and 7 of the Game of Thrones series. Now, this mountain on the Snifelness Peninsula was already pretty popular before the show because it has such an interesting arrowhead shape, but it did gain a lot of popularity after the show when it was featured in the background when Jon Snow and his men go to fight the army of the dead. There's actually a pretty decent chance you've seen a picture of the Kirkjufell mountain and just not realized what it was, because the most popular pictures of it show it all green in like spring or summer with the Kirkjufell's Foss waterfall in the foreground. So there's this waterfall and this epic mountain, but it's usually like this very vibrant green scene, whereas in the TV show, it was covered in snow. So we actually did visit it in the winter and we got to see it covered in snow. The waterfall was frozen. It was a really cool winter wonderland scene and much more similar to what you would see from comparing it to the TV show. As I mentioned, you can find Kirkjufell on the Snifelness Peninsula, which is a very popular place to visit as a whole. It's often called Iceland in a nutshell because so many of the beautiful types of landscapes you'll find around Iceland are all present in this one area. So it's a great place to spend a day just driving around the peninsula, and Kirkjufell is right at the end of the route, right outside a town called Grundafjordur. So you can do the whole route and do this right at the end, or you can just come up and visit from like Reykjavik. It'll take you a couple hours, but it's a really pretty drive. Next on the list is Thingvellir National Park, which is featured throughout season 4 of Game of Thrones and is the location of the Bloody Gate. A couple of the most notable scenes where Thingvellir is featured include Arya and the Hound's journey to the Eyrie, and then the fight between the Hound and Brienne of Tarth. Thingvellir is just such a cool spot because it is literally one of the most unique national parks in the entire world, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it's where Iceland's first parliament was founded. You can actually visit the spot where they used to hold their parliament meetings, but also it's really cool because the tectonic plates of the earth have split here and caused this gorge that you can walk through, and so you can actually take turns standing on different continents while you're in this park. There's also the option to go snorkeling between the tectonic plates in this crystal clear water from a glacier. Like, it is just really interesting. And then that's not even covering the incredible terrain here, these mountains off in the distance and all these rugged moss-covered rocks. It is just such a cool place to explore, even if you're not a Game of Thrones fans. So this is one of the spots that I would definitely say to prioritize because there's just so much to do and see here. This is one of the most popular stops on a Golden Circle tour, which is one of the most popular road trips to take in Iceland. It also includes Geyser, which is like the biggest geyser in Iceland, and then also the Gullfoss Falls. So if you're interested in visiting a number of Iceland's most iconic landmarks, you can do that while on your journey to visit Thingvellir, so it's really convenient. In addition to the filming locations that I just mentioned in Iceland, they used a number of glaciers, caves, canyons, and mountains for all these really cool filming spots. So hopefully I will get back to Iceland one day to visit the rest of those, and if I do, I will make sure to fill you guys in on how you can visit them as well. And that takes us to Northern Ireland. Now, according to the internet, there were 25 different spots used in Northern Ireland for filming the Game of Thrones series. Today, I want to tell you about 2 that you can visit very easily from Belfast. Now, I do want to make a very important distinction right at the beginning here because I've seen a lot of confusion on this. These filming spots are in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. It is not part of the Republic of Ireland, which is not part of the UK. They are directly next to each other. There's a whole thing about the border, but this is in Northern Ireland, which is its own separate thing from Ireland. So if you are going to visit these spots, make sure you get tickets for Northern Ireland. However, if you do mess up and let's say you book your tickets to Dublin, Ireland, you can go and visit these spots within a couple hours drive. It's just going to be a little more out of the way. First up are the Dark Hedges, which were used as the King's Road in season 2, episode 1. Now, the Dark Hedges are probably the most well-known Game of Thrones filming location. They just got a lot of hype online, and again, they're very easy to visit from Belfast. These trees are just really unique, and they do have this very edgy fantasy-like quality because they don't look quite normal, and to have a whole road lined with them does create just this really cool atmosphere. It can be really spooky, but it can also be very vibrant and beautiful depending on the weather. I've seen a lot of pictures on social media showing the Dark Hedges throughout the seasons, and you can get a lot of really different vibes here. But because those trees are just so disfigured and funky, they have the perfect fantasy vibe for a series like Game of Thrones. Now, in reality, these were planted back in the 1700s by a guy who just wanted his driveway to look more impressive leading up to his fancy mansion. But all these years later, they've grown into this really cool looking road, and it's just a really fun spot to visit. Northern Ireland can get a lot of rain, so I would recommend you bring a rain jacket with you just in case, and make sure you have shoes that can get wet and or a little bit muddy in case it is or has recently rained near the Dark Hedges. You need about 30 minutes here. There's not a lot to see besides the hedges, but you want time for some photo ops and to walk down the road, and is only going to take you about 55 minutes to get here from Belfast. Just one more note, if you do want that kind of unspoiled fantasy out in the middle of nowhere look, make sure you get there early in the morning so there's not a ton of people there that are going to ruin your shots. And the last stop I'm going to feature today is the Dunluce Castle, which was used as the House of Greyjoy. Now, this is one you might not immediately recognize because they did use quite a bit of CGI, but as you get closer to the ruins of this really beautiful castle on a cliff, you can very easily see the skeleton of Dunluce Castle that was used to create this epic castle in the Game of Thrones series. Now, I absolutely loved this stop on our trip through Northern Ireland because I mean, this is just such a majestic, gorgeous view to have the ruins of this old castle on this cliff overlooking the ocean and these rolling green hills leading up to it. Like, in the moment, I thought it looked like something out of a fantasy novel, and then I found out later they used it in Game of Thrones. It is so easy to see why. Supposedly, this castle was also the inspiration for C.S. Lewis's Kirkjufell, which is near and dear to my heart. So this is just such a beautiful stop. You can actually go tour the castle as well. We did not have the opportunity to do that, but that is something I would like to go back and do because we got to see it from afar, sitting out there on the cliff. But I would love to go back and take that tour. And if you are a Game of Thrones fan, I would definitely recommend you do that so you can get a little closer and see some of those details and compare them in real life to the show as well. The Dunluce Castle is located in Bushmills, which is just over an hour from Belfast. It is very easy to get there, and if you do decide to do a tour, you're going to carve out about an hour and a half. But if you just want to take in the view, there's an overlook point just down the road from the castle where you can pull over for a few minutes, take in the view, and then be on your way. Just make sure you bring a good jacket with you because you will be so high up on those cliffs. The wind up there can get kind of crazy and it's very easy to get cold. All right, guys, there are 6 of the Game of Thrones filming locations that you can visit in Iceland and Northern Ireland. Again, if you're headed to Iceland or Northern Ireland to begin with, there's a good chance you'll be heading in the direction of at least one of these just because they're at some of the most iconic spots in the countries. So it's very easy to visit these or go just a little bit out of your ways to make a special stop. And it's just always so fun to see the places where they filmed your favorite shows and movies in person and see what they look like in real life. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know which of these locations you want to visit first. Drop that down in the comments. And if you do have any questions about visiting any of these spots, just let me know and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I also have a full written blog post about these 6 locations on my website at www.cockenriding.com. As I visit more of these locations, I will be adding that information directly into that post to make it an ongoing guide as well. So that's one you might want to save so you can continuously reference it as you're planning your trip to these locations. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you're not already subscribed to Carried Away Travels, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to see more videos like this from me in the future. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch this video with me today, and I wish you many happy travels.